And Matt. And welcome everyone to episode 47 of the Summoning Hour podcast. I am joined once again by John and Austin of Alfred State University Esports. This week we're going to talk about the tournament that they're running and some of the changes that they've been doing, or some of the things that they've been doing over the last couple of weeks since we last chat. So, hi John, hi Austin, how's it going?
Hi there. How are you?
Hello. Good.
So let's just start it off. What's been the big thing that's been happening since we last chat?
So we competed in HV GamerCon there. Went to that event down in Albany. We did really well there. And then after that, we did I think in New Excel, the spring rally thing that we were trying to push. We got into that. Got in the top 16, so we got money for that. And then for our Siege team, we just started a tournament that started yesterday, finishing up today. Stuff that we've been doing in the past week or two is those 3 big events.
Now it was like you guys started back in August, and I was surprised to hear you guys starting to talk about organizing events already, and yet it sounds like you've had 3 major tournaments that you've been a part of and organized.
Yes.
Correct.
And then we did a small thing for high schools. We invited local high schools to our esports room. We did basically like, hey, show and tell. Like, this is what we have here at Alfred State. We brought in a guy who does Mob Crush. He's one of the project lead of Mob Crush, Eric Doty. He runs that, and we brought him out from LA to do a whole thing showcase of him. All of that with a new game design major as well we have on campus.
I don't know why I'm surprised, but you sound busy.
Yeah, and last week was supposed to be my off week, and yeah, that didn't go well.
I mean, I took care of most things for you.
Well, it sounds like that there's never really an off week in esports or at Alfred State. So, I mean, tell me more about that experience of having the high schoolers out. I bet that was an interesting take to see what that next step of next generation gamers are going to be like coming into Alfred State.
So that event was really nice to see. We got a lot of interest, and we were able to see which games we should continue doing. Like, we saw there was a lot of interest into Overwatch, a lot of interest into Rocket League into these, so we know what is up and coming from these new high school students, and the passion that these high school students have is really exciting from my perspective, because they have the same passion that I do and the same drive. So with that, makes me feel comfortable knowing that when I leave, there's still people who have the same drive coming in after.
Yeah, that handoff and that transition time, those are going to be huge moments every time it happens, just because you don't know how much the university is going to help shoulder that weight as you have that transition, and you need those students who are just absolutely dedicated to it. Otherwise, you lose a lot of tribal knowledge, you lose a lot of documentation, you lose a lot of forward momentum for sure. I couldn't imagine if you were having to transition now at the end of the spring semester and you were like, we just ran 16 tournaments and we had these tours and we were traveling for all of these things and having more guest speakers, and here you go, new guy, handle it.
Basically, for that, we have next year is Austin's last year here, so he's going to be training the next person we choose to be president, giving him all the connections that we make, all the connections with the people working in our school. I'm going to be here for an extra year, and I'm going to be here helping that person continue that and dragging on for the year after that.
That sounds like a nice roll off, especially as you have you and Austin able to assist in that, and it's over a longer period of time. A lot of clubs don't have that kind of backup plan or having that long, slow roll off, and it's usually just, oh, we need someone to take over the club next year, and I'm here for the next 2 months. Let's figure it out. And that's not how you want to create longevity, I don't think.
No, we want to basically find newer students that are interested in the same way that we were, and have them drag it on for when they're here, and then do the same for them.
What was it like for the high school students, like coming into your esports area and talking with you all about what you were doing, and what was the general interest? Was it mostly as that player, or was it as a leader, like a president or a VP or a treasurer kind of role?
So it was surprisingly a mix. There's a lot of them were just trying to like, hey, I just want to play these games. I want to play competitively and all this. But there was a few of them that came up to me when I told them I was the president, was talking to me like, how did you get in this position? What's that entails and all this. It was this nice mixture of people of like, I just want to play esports competitively for college, and then also the mixture of develop the club longer. Some of them had older brothers in here at Alfred, so that also helped. That like, oh, I know what's going on already. See, my brother told me what's going on here. I know there's a need for these people to help continue this going on. So they came up to me and were interested in making sure the club could continue.
That's great. I mean, a lot of people in the backside of esports, the analysts, the coaches, the presidents, the managers, they don't get a lot of the spotlight, especially if you're talking collegiate, as it's like it's a free for all of just trying to get things going and rolling and supported. But it's nice to see that that next generation is already aware of those positions and that they want to be doing some of those responsibilities. So I mean, it's got to just make that next year of collegiate esports that much easier, knowing that you have people who are familiar with the responsibilities and what they're going to have to execute as. Do you see any, like, what's that transition going to be like for the people who have that perception of what the role is and what it actually is at Alfred State?
So initially, it's going to be a rough awakening, I think, for some of them, because their perception is, okay, well, they're e-board, they do a little work, but I feel like some of them are going to realize once they get involved into it, how much work, even if it's something simple, like you do for something for 5 minutes, like you put something on social media that takes like 5 minutes to do. That those small moments adds up, and there's a lot of small micro decisions as a club that we are making throughout the day of like, hey, we just got this saying, should we go do this interview? Oh, hey, we got this. People want us to make this esport in this CS:GO into an esports. Should we actually start an esport a game? Things those small micro decisions are going to be what awakens them, I think, because they know that it takes a lot of time, but they don't really understand like it's a lot of time, but it's not a lot of time at once. There's a lot of small needs to make decisions quickly and fastly, and so I think that is an issue with some of them. But other than that, once they realize that, it's going to be smooth. A lot of these guys that I have seen are really passionate about esports, and I'm actually much more confident than the last time I talked to you about the transition.
I've had several people come up, even say they're not interested in playing, but they want to help and watch the club grow and help the club grow. So we have more of the diversity than the people that come in thinking, oh, this is just going to be gaming. We have the people who are going to be here playing, and we have the people who just want to help it grow.
That sounds like it's even going to be bolstering the rest of the student body on campus as well, as long as they have an interest and awareness of, hey, what can we do to help? Like that's going to just kind of permeate throughout the student body, and that's ultimately what you want amongst the community of your club. That's amazing growth and an amazing opportunity for people to already be that level of aware. Now, with the topic of high schoolers, it's interesting to think about the parents of those students who are just like, I don't want you being involved in esports. You can't go pro. There's no money in that. Was there any of those conversations coming your way as like, what can I tell my parents? Like, what this is actually good for? What benefit is it for me to actually be involved?
It was actually because when the high school came here, they also were allowed to bring like the parents, and so my job was to really handle the parents and help them understand like what it means to be an esports player on campus and all that. So a lot of the questions were like, is there a GPA requirement? Do we make sure that the students are still going to focus on their education and all that? And I help them through all like showing them like, yeah, we have a GPA requirement. We have this community where we make sure education is first. If you have to do homework, the coach is not allowed you to force you to come to practice. All of these things. Also, the fact that in the community, everyone's in the esports club. We're willing to help each other out. We do group projects. after I talked to them, realized, oh, it's not as bad. It's just like a normal sport. Once I actually sat down with them and talked to them for like 10, 15 minutes, trying to explain it was just like a normal sport, a lot of the parents gave that up that hostility that they were concerned. Also explained that, like, hey, we just won money. We did these big tournaments. We went down to Albany. We didn't have to pay for it. The school paid for that. Legitimizing the fact that it's basically just a traditional sport on campus helped really calm the nerves of a lot of these parents.
Would you say that I mean, you mentioned the hostility was dropped as soon as you kind of translated what esports and the interaction is like with the school. Was it actually like open hostility, or was it just a lot of skepticism?
It was a mix of skepticism and a mix of not really hostility, but combativeness. So, like, I would say, like, it's just like traditional, like, no, it's not, no, it's not. I'm like, but it is. We have these same requirements that a traditional sport was. A lot of, since it was a club sport, there was a lot of this questioning. You just saying things just to get your student to come here. When once they realized what I was saying was actually like in our constitution and all these different things, they realized actually, he's not just trying to get the student to come here.
Yeah, and I can understand that skepticism, like with so many esports programs popping up all over the place, and some of them even throwing small amounts of scholarships around. Like, I could imagine that parents are like, there's no way that this is actually going to be good, or this school is any good, just for throwing money at for people playing video games. So I'm thankful that you were there as a translator and as an esports Sherpa of sorts, just to calm those nerves and just to calm those misunderstandings or those assumptions even. Was there a specific assumption that came across and you were just like, where did that come from? It's one that you hadn't heard before.
My biggest one was like, so what you're telling me is they're just gonna be in this room eating and not do anything. I was like, no. Like, their big concern was, is my kid going to eat? I'm like, kids will eat food if they're hungry. The food is like 2 feet to the left. They will get up and get food. People's biggest concern was that, will my student eat?
That's funny. That's the overprotective parent talking. It's like, the baby bird has flown the nest. How will I know that they've eaten? How will I know that they're not just shoved into a dark cave and told survive? That's amusing. Now, tell me about that event that you did down in Albany. That was a big event, not so big. What was that like?
John, you can take this one.
H3 GamerCon. It was, I think, 20 colleges competing in Fortnite, Overwatch, and League of Legends. Our school sent us down there to play down in Albany. It was a 4.5-hour drive. It was, in my opinion, a semi-big event because seeing how like the Overwatch League is a big one, it's bigger than what it should have been. Being this is the only second year of it, but it was a huge experience, I think, for our players because we didn't just play against people that were lower seeded, etc. We played first a low seeded team and then went into the higher seeded teams, and it was a learning experience for the players and a great experience for them as well. It was something that they felt was it's something that felt like they accomplished something, basically.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with those smaller tournaments where it's just like, let's go out there and get experience before being up on like DreamHack Atlanta and those kind of stages. Like, that valuable LAN experience that you hear about all the time in professional esports is, there's not many opportunities for that in collegiate right now. Like, it pops up in events like this, or it pops up in like the Mountain Division regional championships that happened out here a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago. So getting that LAN experience has got to be a huge benefit, and being able to take that back to the rest of the club and talk about that experience, maybe that's a realm of getting people ready for more of those tournaments and events.
I basically think the event, the HV GamerCon, was bigger for the school because until then, when we went there, maybe 2 or 3 of the schools knew about us. now every school there knows us. They know what we can do. When the casters were talking, they were saying that we were the underdogs. No one knew what we had to come with, and it showed that we have more than any of them suspected.
Yeah, that is what makes me excited about so many schools getting involved with esports, is that you don't have to be Stanford, you don't have to be Notre Dame, you don't have to be all these well-known to do schools that are known for their traditional sports programs to be getting into esports and hold your own, or even just push everyone else aside. Like, one of my favorite things will be like seeing Alfred State University just shove it to UW or to Wazoo or to UCI one day in whatever game. It's like, yeah, you might be top dog known for your esports program, but this team just handed it to you and they're supposed to be nobodies, and they just rewrote that story right in front of your eyes. Like, that's an exciting narrative to me. What was it about, or what teams were participating down in that convention?
So there was Rutgers, not Rutgers, sorry, IPI, Field, basically all New York state colleges besides Fairfield, because they're Connecticut. It was all like New York, UB, not UB, Albany,
SUNY Canton was there.
SUNY Canton, YSIS. So there was some big name ones in there, but there was a lot of more local schools in New York that went to this event.
Now, other people felt like they didn't know you and what you were capable of, and calling you all the underdogs. How was your intel on all the other clubs showing up?
Most there was two teams that we didn't know. One was IPI, because no one in the league even knows anything about them, because they don't post any of their videos, they don't stream their matches, they don't do VOD reviews make the VOD reviews public or anything. So the only time you get to know about them is when you play them. So we couldn't find any data about them. And then the other one was the Canadian school that was really we really couldn't not do sorry King. We couldn't really find anything about King because they were Canadian, and again they didn't really post that much. Find most data about for the league. We were able to find most of the schools, and same with Overwatch. We were able to find most of them.
And how much work did you put into kind of analyzing their gameplay, or just kind of just get to know them up front, just so that you could understand kind of what you were getting into?
Each team I dedicated, since I was the Overwatch coach, I can only speak to the Overwatch side of it. I dedicated 2 to 3 hours per team that was in the Overwatch thing, which was 10 other teams. So I went and did 2 to 3 hours per team, and then the two teams that I knew we had the greatest chance of facing, which was Fairfield, since that was our first match, and then against the number 1 seed IPI, because I knew we were facing, more likely than not we'll be facing them. I put both of those. I put in 6 hours into both of them, trying to find as much data as I could about them. Really couldn't find about anything about IPI. Asked other colleges, but no other college in the tournament would even give us any information, because we were the wild card and because we came from TESPA. They didn't like the fact that we were coming from TESPA. Their response was, "Well, you should be fine. You're from TESPA. Those teams are better than us," and they wouldn't say anything to us.
Oh, that's interesting. So now there's this already a perception of quality based off of who you're affiliated with. So, I mean, now you have TESPA having a reputation. Is there one developing about NACE by chance?
I know NACE also has a pretty good reputation. I know, like, SUNY Canton told us don't join NACE, because we were thinking of joining NACE, but we were told not to join NACE because they have Maryville for Overwatch, and that's like they're basically a contenders team. Maryville's two of their members just got picked up by Atlanta Reign, their Atlanta Reign Academy team, so the contenders team there. So they told us don't join NACE due to the fact that the number 1 team in there, there's never a chance of you to ever beat them, because the top 3 or 4 teams in NACE give out scholarships. So they told us don't even bother joining that. Either join the one that we did or join TESPA, due to the fact that it's more even, since it's national. It's easier to get, since there's more people in TESPA.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's good information for folks out there to know, that like if you're not going to be able to keep up with pain or pain to win, it may not be worth your time with that configuration over at Nace. That's even a little troubling on from my perspective, in that it's going to stunt growth if that's the reputation and the stigma going around from students to from one club to another. Ah,
Yeah.
do you think scholarships really play that much of a role in the caliber of players that they can bring in?
Yes, I actually do agree. I think that is a big thing. Also, find that with NACE, there's a buy-in fee to get into the conference. Unlike TESPA and the other one that we joined, there were no buy-ins to get into TESPA. It was, hey, just play. And NACE, if you want to join, you have to buy into the conference. You gotta have full-time faculty members running the club and paying them, and then you got to require to give scholarship ups to your players. So therefore, NACE will always have the better competition because the schools are being forced to put more money and put more backing into the esports program. So in the long run, I feel like NACE will be where we want to join once we get the school to back us more, because you will get the bigger teams, it will draw bigger players to your school because they can guarantee that they're going to get scholarships and things like this.
That is really interesting. I'll have to keep an eye on Nace, because from my perception is like, yes, you can set that standard of we want to be the best competition and we're gonna have higher standards of entry, but for a buy-in to the league, for having like faculty requirements, man, that seems like a lot to ask for so early into esports. I mean, it was like 3 years ago Robert Morris decided to toss out scholarships for the first time, and yeah, there's a lot of schools getting involved with esports, but there's maybe 16 to 20 colleges that I'm at least somewhat familiar with who have talked about scholarships. So man, I can't imagine that's actually helping their case for growth right now.
Yeah, I don't know which school it was. I just saw a post about the other day that's offering like full rides for anyone that could compete for their Overwatch and League team. I'm not sure which one it is. If I can find it, I'll send it to you again. But it's showing more that schools are willing to throw everything into esports now.
Absolutely. I mean, this is kind of like what I was talking about earlier. It was just that this is no longer a regulated field, and you no longer have divisions. You have all of this stuff going on where um and that notification new follower just totally threw me off of what I was thinking. Thank you, Beaverboy01, for following. And what was I saying? Oh, I was saying that without these regulated divisions, you now have small colleges playing up against the biggest colleges, or the most well known for their traditional sports. And I mean, it makes sense that these schools are throwing out scholarships because they want the players to grow themselves and grow their esports program faster than anyone else. Because when was the last time a traditional sport actually became a huge generational wave where everyone was on the same playing field in terms of starting to acquire and build a program? I couldn't even begin to tell you. Like, maybe it's swimming or rowing, but like all of those kind of sports are tied to collegiate and maybe an amateur league that doesn't have like the big spotlight like hockey, football, baseball, softball, all of those. So I mean, this is their opportunity to get in and get in ahead of everyone and be one of the forefront programs for something that might last like generations, if this is really something that gets going. So it makes a whole bunch of sense to me that people are diving in aggressively, but I still have that concern about the quality of the program that they're running and the quality of the school and education students are going to get while pursuing the esports side of things.
Yeah, I noticed with some of the ones that full ride scholarships to other colleges, I noticed that you get the sense that they are so focused on esports that they are not really focusing on the education anymore. The only thing that actually matters to the school is once they get these full rise athletes, is making sure these athletes perform at the highest level. So there's a double-edged sword. You get the nice athletes and you get them to play for esports and all this, but then you're not letting them actually do their education if they just, which is the same issue with normal D1 colleges for traditional sports. And that I don't like. I never liked that, where it's like, well, that concern where you're not actually getting your education, you're not going to college for education, you're just going there to compete. And I always felt that was wrong. Like, I still always feel like education should be the primary reason why you're going to college, not just to compete. I think that's going to be arising as more and more college throw scholarships. It's going to be the education side of esports are going to slowly drop and be less worried, and parents are going to be less worried about right now, like how we have the issue of like, oh, is my student going to be focusing on education? In a couple of years from now, it's not that this question is not even going to be a question anymore, because money talks. Their parents are going to see, oh well, my kid has a full ride because he's an esports player. They're not going to ask that question anymore. Right now, they're asking that question because they're not getting the money.
Yeah, and what's going to be interesting, because of the whole path to pro is you can go pro as young as I think 16 in some games, 18 for others, is that, and it can be while you're in high school kind of deal. So I wonder if as students are transitioning out of high school, if you'll see more of the esports agents getting involved with students that young and being like, well, we can shop you to a college, or we can shop you to a professional team, and we can start doing lineups that way. So then you start having collegiate teams really actually competing for the same resources at the same time from pro league teams. And so having that sense of whether or not the agents or the schools are really creating that value for the student, like, it's going to be an interesting transition as people start understanding the role of collegiate esports in their development and what people really want to be doing.
Yeah, with that, so like I agree with that without you saying there, and that's, I feel like there should be a requirement, like the path of pro should be changed soon. So like, I know in Overwatch it's 16, 10, no, 18 for the Overwatch League. Anything besides that, it doesn't matter. Like Flower from Korea was playing the Korea Contenders at the age of 15. So he's like a high school student competing at the second highest level thing for that. I don't like that. It should need to be like how the NBA is, where you're required at least to go to college for 1 year or something or more, so that you are still getting some education before you go into the pro scene, before you just become an esports player. Because the issue with esports is has even a higher burnout rate than any traditional sport. There's a certain point where you're like 25, 26, you're getting already up in age, and you're already about to drop out of being a professional player. And now once you drop out, you still have a great amount of your life ahead of you, and you don't have any other skills and try to get a new job unless it's still within the esports industry. But you're very limited on what you can do due to the fact that you never went to college to get your own job or something.
Yeah, and that's one responsibility I think falls to a lot of the professional organizations, especially right now, is making sure that they take care of their players once they're done being competitive. Now, it depends on the individual, but having the person be available as a brand for the team, and being able to roll into like a production role or a coaching role, and like that takes some purpose from the organization to say, this is how we can transition this person, but or let them go back to school. But yeah, I worry about things like burnout, because I mean, burnout, you heard even just in stage 1 of this season of Owl that there's been 4 people who have resigned already. Like, they've been competing for 10 weeks now, and 4 people have already resigned, and I believe all 4 of them stated cases of burnout. Now, esports and video games have the luxury and I guess the curse of being available all the time. You can solo queue and you can grind and you can grow that way. But then if you're putting in that time and then the time to practice with the team, like, that is just a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure and a lot of expectations of you. So if we're not teaching these students early on how to perform in esports and how to regulate that practice, it's going to be a very long and hard journey for esports to get a lot of momentum if we can't control that. I mean, it's no different than like the whole concussion problem that the NFL has. Like, we're looking at the same problem, just a different angle.
Yeah, burnout's always a problem for any game, though, because I know I was talking to someone the other day, and he was mentioning how he wants to grind up in Overwatch. He wants to be Diamond. He wants to be GM, but he basically feels that the higher he'll get, he'll kind of just lose his love for the game, and burnout will just come, and he'll not want to touch it ever again.
Yeah, I mean, that's another challenge, because you can feed that competitive need and you can get to those goals that you can accomplish by yourself, and you don't need a team to do that. While any baseball player, football player who really wants to be the best, like, they have the off-season training and then they're in the season, and it might take them 20 years to get to a point where they feel like that they can actually accomplish what they wanted to do or win that championship. With esports and all of these online cups and qualifiers and different organizations and tournaments and events, it's easy for someone to just go all in for 2 years, get to what they want, and just be like, peace, I'm done. I mean, I know that happens with some fighting game professionals. Like, the new game comes out, they grind it, they win a tournament, and then they're done. They walk away because they don't have to prove anything anymore. And there was one other event, the spring rally. How was that going for y'all?
The spring rally, we again placed against the first seeded team on our first match. We ended up losing right away, but our players have gotten compliments from both the players and casters of the event. So even though it wasn't us going far in it, we still got knowledge and got acceptance and knowledge of us being a presence from higher level teams.
That's great. I mean, and there's more connections, more networking opportunities. Now you probably have an in for scrimmaging, and I mean, that's going to benefit the club 6 weeks from now, and 6 months from now, and 6 years from now. Being there for the first NYXL Spring Rally, and it's definitely not going to be the last one. This seems to have generated a lot of interest in collegiate esports, and I mean, NYXL pushed this really hard, so it's exciting to see a professional scene getting involved with the collegiate locals.
Yeah, speaking of that, this definitely not gonna be the last one. They got well with their goal, and also I was talking with Adam, who's the one of the guys over at XL. He was telling me that the XL has some new things planned down the line. They might be thinking of trying to start up their own league, things like these things. Like, so they're the XL is trying to really help push collegiate. You know, the only way they're gonna keep getting recruits, especially from New York, because that's the whole thing with their academy team. The academy team is only the whole academy team is only people from the tri-state area. They're trying to make a team, local talent that they can have on their team to have an easier fan base and bigger fan base behind them. So they're thinking of trying to maybe start up their Legion, like how you were saying, the Mountain Division. They might be trying to start their tri-state division where it's hosted by the XL, and they run their own collegiate conference. See how much support they could get, how many people would vote for it, how much interest was there actually in this region to host a league like this.
That's amazing. And I mean, as high school and middle school kind of esports programs start rolling on, it's going to be building up more of that awareness of who are great players nationally and where do they get sent. Well, what organization do they go to? Do they go pro? Do they go the collegiate route? And I mean, I think building up that local fandom, especially for local players, I think that's a great place to start, especially until that infrastructure of understanding the national players and who the great ones are, until that's really supported. I think reaching locally and building locally is such a smart move, just to start building that understanding of how to be a fan of collegiate esports, and building out that understanding locally of, like, this is what we're known for in the tri-state area. This is what we want to be doing. This is our step for putting our mark on esports. Like, that is such a strong first step for NYXL to be putting forward. Okay, it makes me mad that we really don't have an owl team out here in Seattle.
Makes me proud of being New York.
And we, with this idea of like what they did, like how you said that's really cool that they did this, we did the same thing. After the AFU GameCon, we did a 24-hour live stream, charity stream, which then we raised money and donated it to a local high school who's just their educational board just approved esports on their like to have esports as a club sport on in the high school. So we donated money to help them raise for the equipment and all of this. So we are trying to do the same thing since like exactly what you said about how that bringing up the new talent and all of this, what the new Cassell is doing, we decided, well, if they're doing it, we should probably do the same thing to bring up the high school students so they can come to the collegiate scene and help build that locally around Alfred State to ensure that we always have new people coming in because they like, oh, Alfred State supported us. That's a good option to go there. We know they have a good program.
That is such a smart read and such a smart application of what NYXL is doing to apply to your school and to go down to that next layer of high school. That's a money move right there. Dang, that makes me happy. That is a good thing, and I mean that's so smart that you were able to act on that so fast. That's really impressive.
Yeah, our main thing that we realized was we look at what works with every other organization, what worked in clubs, what didn't work, and if it didn't work, we look why it didn't work and see if we could still do it and make it work. And if it worked, we see if we could improve it in any way.
It's the right mindset, and I mean you all are moving incredibly fast. I mean, from not having run a tournament, what, 4 weeks ago, something like that, when I last talked to you guys, to having attended, ran, and hosted guests and ran tournaments like that. Now you're already like running 24-hour streams. You are doing donations. You are building up the people who are coming after you and who are starting even earlier. You are insane, all of you. You're crazy. You're way too fast. It's hard for me to believe that you all are able to move so quickly in all this. What's the next steps? What's that next mountain that you're going to climb in 2 days?
My plan would be to decide. We did the 24-hour live streams. It went so well. We were planning on either doing them monthly now, where we each month we find a new high school that we donate some money. And like we say, we find 5 of them, and then we rotate through them monthly of doing a 24-hour live stream for them to help with them raise money. Maybe our goal is figure out how to start up a next year. Since we only did last year was just, oh, this year was just, hey, show and tell. This is what we have. Now, I plan next semester or even next year is to have it where they come here and we host a high school tournament so they get the land experience and they get the experience before they even come to college of playing in a tournament in person with people watching them. That same experience that we got at HV GameCon, I would like to give to the high school students. Would be my big thing. And then also over the summer, me and John will be focusing a lot on trying to get sponsorships for the club and the room and different our teams, looking to different ones like maybe a Logitech, maybe a water company because we need to stay hydrated. These different things we are planning on trying to do is trying to build it up and ensure that we have, once the money runs dry from the school that they can give us, we have other sources ready to keep pulling from, to keep giving us the equipment and gear that we need to continue as a club down the line.
And we want to also show that we could give back to them. We want to show that we're not just going to take and not return. Would be putting their logo on streams, putting like a logo up in our room, etc.
Well, it sounds like you all have your hands full and you guys are staying busy for sure. What's that next move for you all competitively?
For Overwatch competitively, it would be practicing, trying to get way better. My goal next year, I would like to actually get into the national TESPA championship playoffs. So either finish in the top 28 in a national league or regional, finish in the first or second, so we can go to that national championship and go down to. It was hosted this year, I think, in I forgot. Remember, somewhere in Texas it was hosted and was put on ESPN. So that would be my goal next year for Overwatch, is getting to that. That league would be them competing in the Riot Collegiate tournament.
We're also thinking starting up. I think it's 2 new teams next semester: CS:GO and Apex Legends.
Yes, and
So
maybe Hearthstone.
maybe Hearthstone, because that one takes less equipment to have to run.
Growth, speed, activity. You guys seem to have the complete package. Is there any shout outs that you would like to do? Talk about other stuff that's coming up that's maybe not part of the grand scheme of things, but stuff that you're excited about?
I'd first like to shout out again to Spencer Peavy, and admin Steve Pesanola, the track coach, who's our advisor. He helped us a lot. They both did. He gave up for us for our siege tournament we hosted this weekend. He took out his All American plaque that he won, the 2-time All American plaque he got, and destroyed it so he could make a plaque for the siege tournament that we could give out as a trophy.
Dang.
So that was amazing that he did that for us. Like, he literally took his plaque out and redesigned it all by hand and made something for the siege tournament. So I'm happy with how much the admin are helping us and pushing with us. And them is amazing from Alfred State. It's just amazes me how much they're willing to back us.
Absolutely. That sounds like it's a great environment for growth and making sure that you guys really have that first foot forward and saying that we're going to be the best in the area. How about you, John? Any shout outs?
I want to give a shout out to the teams that we have here, just because without them we wouldn't be able to push this. We had at least, I think, 20 to 40 people show up for our tryouts alone for League of Legends, and without showing that interest, the school wouldn't have given us any of this. So I want to make sure our players feel like the players have helped us grow. Without the League and Overwatch team, we wouldn't have went to H3 GamerCon. Without our Rainbow Six team, we wouldn't be hosting our first tournament right now. So I want our players to know that we're thankful for them.
There you go. Well, thanks for the update, guys. And I look forward to hearing how much more you change in 6 weeks and over the summer, and when you kick off your second year together as a club. So thanks again for letting me know and keeping me up to date with what you got going on. It's exciting news and exciting times for your club and collegiate esports. So keep the news coming. I'm happy to share it and keep you guys blasting out on the podcast.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
All right, you guys have a good day. I'll talk to you later.
Very well.
And now to record the opening. Here we go. This week I talk with John and Austin of Alfred State University Esports. They've got tournaments engaged. They are participating. They are hosting. They are looking at local community and high schools. It's an exciting time for Alfred State, and it's just a huge boost of growth in collegiate esports. Take a listen and let's talk about it in the comments, or if you leave me feedback on the Anchor.fm app. Oh, right. I should probably end the stream. Ha! There you go. That's how I do things. I forget about one thing or another. Could have left this running for 24 hours. That could have been exciting. Anyways, thanks for joining me on this episode of the Summoning Hour. I will catch you all again on Tuesday. I won't be streaming Tuesday afternoon's podcast, but I will be streaming Tuesday evening about 8:30. So, good to know. Share the news, share the podcast. Let me know how else I can help you all in your understanding of collegiate esports. Later, taters.